What's up YouTube, and welcome to another Infinite Painter tutorial. Now this one's also aimed at beginners, but if you're not a beginner, you're gonna have so much fun creating this. But if you are a beginner, it will help you sort of get to know how to use Infinite Painter and create this really fun minimalistic beach scene. So as always, there's links to everything you're gonna need in the requirements section down below of the description of this video. You'll find the canvas size, you'll find a link to the palette image, which you can see at the top here, and that's it. You don't need anything else for today's design other than those items there. Now in the video, I'll show you how you can import it into Infinite Painter as well, so you don't need to worry about that either. I've talked you through the entire process. Now, as always, make sure to subscribe here on the channel for more Infinite Painter content. But if you want to support the work that I do here, you can become a member of the channel. You get a loyalty badge beside your name, which you can flash in the comments, as well as you also get early access to these tutorials. And with potentially some members only tutorials to come in the future, you can support me and the work that I do here. So with all that said, check the link in the description down below if you want to support the channel, and enjoy today's tutorial, and let's get started. So today I'm going for the 2000 by 2000 canvas size. You can literally just type them in those fields. Feel free to pick a different canvas size if you need to make it smaller, as long as it's a square ratio, so it's the same in both, you're good to go. I've gone ahead and set the background color to white, not that that really matters, but the important thing that I've done here is I've turned off time lapses, because I think the Infinite Painter tends to run a little bit better the less you give it to do. So I've turned off the option of time lapse, and I'll hit create, and we go through to our canvas. And of course we want to grab the palette for today's design. Now my palettes are images that you can go ahead and download either to your photos or your files, depending on what device you're using. And to import it into Infinite Painter, we're going to go up to the three dots. We're going to go to import here, and we're going to go ahead and select the location that it's saved as. Mine's in my photos, so once I go to my photos and I find it and I tap on it, it's going to ask me now, do I want to import it as a layer or a reference? And we want to import it as a reference. It will drop this little strip up here in the top left corner, and that's our palette for today's design. So we can go ahead and just simply tap, and you can see my color changing here. Every time I tap, it changes the color. Now, if your equipment doesn't have that capability for whatever reason, you can go up to the three dots here. You can go to settings. If you go to gestures and set a long press as the eyedropper, so just tap on that and select the option of eyedropper, you can just simply hold down with your finger and you can grab whatever color you want. You can see that little dial that just pops around my finger there, and you can grab the correct color. So let's get started with our design. So we want to grab the first color in the top left of the palette. So the first color in the palette. So that nice, lovely light blue. So you can just tap either way. We're going to go ahead and we're going to go to our brush. We're going to go to the option of calligraphy and the monoline brush. We're going to tap on it. And I'm going to go to the settings straight away here. I'm just going to increase the smoothing. Now what this means is we can get some really nice smooth lines, and it's going to get rid of a lot of the tremors in your lines. So I've set the smoothing to 100% there. And then I'm going to go back. And we can use that brush now. And the first thing we're going to do is draw in the circle. Now we don't need to draw a perfect circle. We can just simply go up to our tools up here. So our create tools, we can go to the option of shapes and circle. And then we can simply go ahead and drag out. Doesn't matter what size your brush is, by the way, as long as you create a circle in the middle of your canvas. So drag out and then grab this dot and just try and position it as best you can in the middle, if not slightly higher. And we can probably make that a little bit smaller because we need to allow for a shadow later on in the design. So a nice light little shade, a little spot there at the bottom. And then what we can then do is we can tap on the circle when we're done. We can go to our tools again. We can go to fill under tools. And if you tap and drag in here, just you drag to the right just to get rid of a fuzzy line there. So just drag to the right, increase the strength of it until you create this border, this big frame. And you can hit the tick when you're done. We then want to go ahead and start adding in our different layers. So this frame is going to sit here and we can draw underneath it and keep things nice and tidy. Let's create a new layer and drag it underneath your frame. We then want to go ahead and we want to grab a blue color for the water. And it's going to be this color here, the third color from the right. So this blue here that I'm tapping on. We then want to go ahead and we will go to our brush quickly and change it to fills. And we'll go to solid fill. We'll go up to our tools again. We'll go to rectangle this time under shapes. And we're going to draw out a rectangle a little bit lower than the halfway point of your circle. So I'm looking at around about sort of here, and I'm going to drag all the way across from side to side, creating that rectangle. Now don't worry if you make any sort of, if you don't quite position it how you want it, you can always use these nodes here to sort of drag it up and down and position it where you want it. Now that's your horizon line there. So we want to just put that a little bit again, just below halfway, and then tap on the rectangle tool up here when you're done. You can also then go ahead and create a new layer, drag it underneath what is going to be your ocean, that big block of color. And if you go ahead and we go to our colors and we grab the second color from the right, this lighter blue, this one here, we're going to go back up to our tools. We're going to go to tools and fill, and make sure at the top here that this icon doesn't look like this. You want it to look like this. So it's just got the one rectangle. What that means is it's only looking at the layer that you're currently on, which is empty. And if we go ahead and tap in the middle of the screen, we filled in the entire layer with that blue, and we can hit the tick when we're done. Now, while we're working on the sky, let's actually just finish that off completely. So we'll go ahead and we'll create a new layer. We're going to change our color. We're going to drag it into the top left to select white. We're going to go to our tools again. We're going to go to shapes and circle this time. And we're going to draw in our sun. And that's just simply a white circle up here in the top left. So we're going to drag outwards to create a circle. We're going to position it a little bit more inwards, just a tiny bit. And size-wise, that looks pretty good. You could probably go a little bit bigger if you wanted to. It's totally up to you. But something like that looks pretty good for size. We're going to go ahead and tap on the circle tool when we're done. Now this layer here, if you turn it on and off using the little eye symbol in the top right, we'll turn it on and off visually. We can go ahead and we can bring out our layer. So let's bring that out and we'll tap on this layer and we will duplicate it. Then go to the bottom one out of the two, tap on it and bring the opacity down. Let's bring it all the way down to, let's bring it down to 10%. Let's then go ahead and grab our create tools. We're going to go up to edit. We're going to go to transform and basic. And we're just simply going to scale this upwards. So we're just going to scale it upwards using the node in the top right. And you'll create this little ring around the outside of your sun. We're keeping it really simple today. So we're going to create a little ring like this and hit the tick when you're done. And then you'll know which one because it says 10% in the bottom left. Tap on it and duplicate it. Tap on the bottom one and repeat. So go back up to create, edit, transform and basic, and drag that out. Now you want to drag it out to the same sort of degree that you did the previous one. So the gap between these should now be the same. So there we go. And if you hit the tick when you're done, and then if we tap on that layer, duplicate that too, and then again tap on the bottom one. So we should have 3 at 10%. And go up to your create options, go to edit, basic transform, and again scale it out again to the same degree and hit the tick when you're done. Now notice what happens here is because we've got 10%, 10% and 10%, the ring around the outside now is a little bit whiter. That is because this one here is set to technically now 30% because that's where it overlaps the most. So it overlaps 3 times there, it overlaps twice here, so that's technically 20, and then this one's 10. So you can layer layers on top of each other to build up a kind of gradient effect with your work. We're then going to go ahead, and if you want to, you can simply go ahead and tap on the top one that's 10% and merge it down. Tap on that one and merge it down as well. So all 3 of those glows are now on one layer. And you can even go ahead and tap on your sun if you want and tap on that and merge it down. So now the sun and its glow are all on one layer. If we then tap on this layer here, the big block of blue for our sky, and we create another new layer, we're going to go ahead and we're going to create some wavy cloud lines. You've got 2 options here. You can go ahead and use solid fill as it is. You would probably want to go up to your settings and set the smoothing all the way up to 100%. Or you can go ahead and go back. You can go to calligraphy, which is my preference. I'm going to go to the monoline brush. I'm going to set the brush size to, let's make it a little bit larger, maybe around about sort of 40 points, just so you can see it nice and easily against my design. Let's move that out of the way. And we're going to just create some lovely wavy lines. So I want you to just sort of start up here and just swoop in and just create a line like this. And as long as you go edge to edge, meaning you went all the way off to the right and all the way off to the left, you should be able to then go up to your create options and go to fill and then tap under here. Now it looks as if I tap to the left and right, I didn't quite do that. So I can just hit the tick and I can just go from my start point off to the left, and I can go from my end point all the way off to the right. And then once I've done that, I can go back to fill and tap in this bottom space here. And I can tap and drag to the right just a tiny bit, just to get rid of the fuzzy line between the fill and the line that we drew, and hit the tick. And just like before, we can tap on this layer, we can bring that down, and we can bring it all the way down, either down to about 10 or 15%. Let's drop it down to 10 to start with. And then we'll repeat. We're going to create another new layer. We're going to draw in yet again another wavy line. And you want to sort of change it up a little bit from the one that you just drew in. So I'm going to start over here. I'm going to sort of swoop in and then have a big drop down. And as long as, again, I go all the way off to the right and all the way off to the left, I can go up to my create options and go to fill, and then tap in here, tap and drag to the right just a little bit just to fill it in, of course, and hit the tick when you're done. Tap on that layer, bring that opacity down to 10% or whatever you set the first one to, and then we can go ahead and do one more. So we'll create another new layer, and we'll go ahead and draw in another wavy line. You can even make this a little bit lower than the others or make it a little bit higher. I'm going to go ahead and try and vary it up from the other ones, but keeping it nice and low like this, and then go off to the right, off to the left, just to be triple sure. Go back to my create options and fill, and tap in that space and drag to the right a little bit and hit the tick when you're done. And then if you go ahead and tap on this layer, bring that opacity down all the way down again to around about 10%. You should then end up with this really awesome kind of very hazy, misty line design in the distance. And feel free to mess around with those settings. You may want to go ahead and set one to maybe 15%. You may want to set them all to around about 15%. So I'm just going to go into them now. I think I'm just going to boost them all up to around about that. I think it wants to keep dropping me to 14 for some reason, so I'm just gonna roll with that. That's fine. I'm going to tap on the last one as well. I'm going to increase it up to 14%. It's just a personal preference. You can change it to whatever you want it to be. And then you end up with those misty lines. And just like before, tap on the top one, tap on it, merge it down. Tap on that one, merge it down. And then all of your little hazy lines are on one layer. And now we want them on one layer because we're going to tap on them. We're going to duplicate them, and we're going to drag them above your water. So up here to the second layer in your layers. Now, at the minute, it will look a bit funny, but what we want to do is we want to tap on it and we want to clip it to the water. And now we just need to adjust it. So we're going to go to our create options. We're going to go to the option of edit and basic transformation. So we're going to go to transformation and basic. We're going to start off by tapping this icon here to flip it horizontally. And then we're going to tap, tap, tap until it's upside down. You may need to go ahead and drag it up to here. And now you should have a reflection of those lines in the water on your horizon. And we can go ahead and move them up a little bit just so that they're not too low hanging in the water, and you'll end up with this awesome reflection. And then just hit the tick when you're done. And there's one more layer to add to the water as such. So we'll tap on this layer here. So the big block of color. We'll go ahead and create a new layer. We'll tap on this layer and change the blend mode from normal, and we'll change it to the option of overlay. We're going to go ahead and we're going to make sure we use that color here at the bottom. So we're going to tap this color here, the third color from the right, this one here. Your brush wants to be set to something such as sprayers and the soft airbrush. And with that set, we can then go ahead and make sure that our brush size is a good size. What size is this? That's a little bit too small. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger, probably up to around about the 400 mark. And you can see the settings here for my brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go along the horizon line left to right, introducing a bit of a brighter blue, just along the horizon only, and just creating a bit of a gradient. Not too far down, just a little bit of color along, again, that horizon line. And we also have to go ahead and do the same for the sky. So we're going to go ahead and go down to this big block of blue. We're going to create a new layer, tap on it, change the blend mode from normal to overlay. And then we're going to go ahead and just go along that horizon again, brightening that up and creating a bit of a blend upwards. And you can bring that a little bit higher if you like. It's totally up to you. As long as the horizon's nice and blue, nice and colorful, you can just blend that out nice and lightly towards the top. You should end up with a wicked gradient like so. Now, hopefully the colors are coming across correctly on camera. As long as you're following along with the exact same colors, you're good to go. Now, if we go ahead and we go up to our layers just underneath our frame here, we create a new layer and we tap on it and turn off the clip. So we don't want it to be clipped. We want it to sit here on its own. We're going to go ahead and create the wave for the sand. Now we're going to start off first of all with the second color in the palette. So this one here, this light sandy color. Our brush wants to go back to calligraphy and the monoline brush. Let's move our layers out of the way. And you can even go ahead and tap on here to get rid of your layers entirely. And we're going to go ahead and create a swooping shape that runs off at the bottom here. So you want to start outside of your canvas and sort of swoop down. And you want to get a really good swoop to it. A little something like that should do the trick. But we just want to maybe have a play until we just get it exactly how we want it. And maybe you even want to sort of come in here from the outside there and draw in an arc and sort of just blend in a bit more of a flick up on that left-hand side. So just keep playing around until you create something along the lines of this shape here. And then you want to go ahead and make sure you go from your end point, your start point off to the end, and your end point off to the edge as well. So that you can go back to your fill tool, tap in that space below, tap and drag to the right to get rid of that fuzzy line, and hit the tick when you're done. And then from there, you want to go ahead and go to this layer, tap on it and duplicate it. Then go to the bottom one out the two, change your color to the next one along. So this one here, so it's the third color, tap on that. Go to your create options and go to fill. Tap and drag to the right just to fill that in. Your thumbnail here would have changed. So you should be able to see the difference in color tone. Hit the tick. And then go ahead and go to your create options, edit, basic transformation. And you can go ahead and grab, say, the top right node and just rotate that a tiny, tiny bit. And then move it upwards as well. So what you should end up with then is this lovely swoop where it gets really, really small in the distance up here. And then gets a little bit thicker off to the bottom. So it's almost as if the beach gets further away and disappears. Now you don't want to rotate it too much, just a little bit will do, and hit the tick when you're done. And now we just need to repeat. So we'll tap on this layer, duplicate it, go to the one underneath it, so tap on that one, grab then the darkest of the sandy colors, the fourth color on that top row, go to your fill tool, tap and drag in here, just to drag to the right, just to fill it in completely, hit the tick when you're done, then go up to your create options, edit, basic transformation. You may need to zoom out a little bit and rotate that a tiny bit, almost to the same degree that you did before. Zoom in, and you kind of want it to tail off almost exactly the same as the other one, but also you want that gap down here to somewhat be sort of the same gap as well, just like we did with the sky. So you may need to rotate it a bit more, you may need to push it up a little bit more. Just keep tinkering with it until you get that nice runoff in the distance, but you also get that lovely big gap here on the left, and hit the tick when you're done. Now we're going to keep repeating this for another couple of colors. So tap on this dark sandy layer and duplicate it. Tap on the bottom one, grab the next color, which is this one here, it's the fifth color. We go up to our tools, we go to fill, and we tap in the sandy area and tap and drag to the right a little bit. Hit the tick when you're done. Then go ahead and go up to your create options and edit, basic transform, zoom out. You might be able to grab this node in the top right and then move that up once you've rotated it a little bit and see what sort of gap you get. Now with the white, I urge you to kind of keep that a little bit thinner, so you don't need to rotate it quite as much. I want the white to be a tiny bit thinner. It's just the edge of the water. So for me, again, I want that lovely tail off where it just disappears and into this point down here, down the end of the beach. But here, we're imagining there's a little bit of water, and we'll hit the tick when we're done. We're then going to go ahead and tap on that layer, duplicate it, and then start adding in some water tones. So again, tap on the bottom one out of the two. Go ahead and go to this color here then, the sixth color on that top row. Go up to your fill tool and tap and drag in the white area to the right and hit the tick when you're done. Again, go up to edit, basic transform, rotate it a little bit. Now this, you want to rotate it to the same degree that you did the sand. So the gap here should be the same gap up there. So I'm just going to move that up again so it disappears into the distance, and you end up with a lovely blue color here, and hit the tick when you're done. We'll tap on this, we'll duplicate it. It's the last one we've got to do this on, so we tap on the bottom one out of the two. We go ahead and grab this color here, the seventh color in the palette, and we'll go back to our fill tool. Tap on it, tap in that space and drag to the right a little bit to fill it. Hit the tick when you're done. Then go ahead and go up to your edit, basic transform, grab the node in the top left and rotate it slightly and move it up. Again, trying to make sure that those gaps are exactly the same as you do. And that looks pretty good to me. I'm going to hit the tick when I'm done. I also notice I've got a little bit of a gap poking through. I'm just going to use my pen there just to get rid of it. Now notice how mine, for example, raises too high off the edge there, where of course we want to sort of prevent that. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go up to my basic transform. But before I do, a good sort of thing to do with Infinite Painter is always make sure you go up to the three dots in the top right and hit save as frequently as you can. That way you can then go ahead and help the app out a little bit and make it a little bit more stable. Now I want to rotate all this area down here. So I'm going to go up to my edit. I'm going to go to basic transform, and you'll see this little tick box very small in the bottom right of your thumbnail of your layers. We want to tap on this one and all the ones above other than the frame. So we're going to grab all these little curved lines we created down here. Once you've selected all of them, what you can then do is just rotate it a little bit. You can move it down an interview a little bit. So you just want to sort of mess around with this and just get a little bit of an angle that you're happy with. You don't want the sand, of course, to raise up too high on the right hand side, but you want that beach running off to the right, and hit the tick when you're done. Now the next step is to go ahead and add in a boat. So again, we'll go up to 3 dots and hit save. It's just good practice. And if you want to, you can merge all of these layers together if you want. So just tap on one, merge it down, tap on the next one and merge it down until they're all one layer. It's totally up to you. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go underneath them, and we've got our big block of water here. We've got the overlay layer and then the reflection of the misty lines. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to tap on it and turn off the clip. We don't want it to be clipped, but we want it in front of our water. We're going to grab the darkest tone here in the far right of the palette. We're going to go to our brush. We're going to keep with the monoline brush. Going to make it a bit smaller though, because we're going to create a boat in the distance. I've gone down to around about 18 points, and that does look fairly good to me. We could probably go a little bit smaller if we want to make it a little bit more detailed. Now, the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is draw in the actual base of the sort of boat, and we're going to keep it really simple. We're just going to draw in a straight line, and what you can do is you can hold your pen at the end to make it a nice straight line. You can pop your finger on the screen as well to make sure it nicely snaps to horizontal. And all you need to do is create a horizontal line. You can then go ahead and from there, you can curve it up at the front. You can make it go sort of straight up or slightly backwards on the back side there. And as long as the front is a little bit higher, you should be able to then just go ahead and draw in a line across. Again, hold your pen down if you need to. So let's undo that. Let's make sure we draw in a nice straight line. Pop our finger on the screen if we need to, and then just link them together and fill that in. So that's your base of your boat. Really simple. When you zoom out, don't forget how small it is that we're drawing. Don't get lost in those details. And then if you want to, you can create a separate layer. So just create a new layer. We're then going to go ahead and create a big sail here. So I'm going to draw in a line. I hold my pen down and pop my finger down on the screen to make sure it's a nice straight line. I'm then going to create a sort of right angle off to this left-hand side. So I'm just going to draw in from that point and try and hold it down to get a nice straight line there. It doesn't want to snap for me. So there we go. It snapped. And what you can do with Infinite Painter, if you let go, you can always tap on your line and then you can zoom in and you can just move these dots around. And that just helps you nicely get a nice straight line. And then you can tap away when you're done. And then draw in a curve from there to there. It's up to you. You can manually fill it in if you like. You can use the fill tool. It really doesn't matter. As long as you get everything, you're good to go. So you can just make your brush size a little bit bigger, fill it in fully, and you've got a big sail. Now we created it on a separate layer, and that means we can tap on it. We can duplicate it. We can go up to our tools, edit. We can go to basic transform again, and we can use this icon here to flip it horizontally, move it off to the right, and we can then make it a little bit smaller too. We can just stick that on the back there, so it's the back sail, and hit the tick when you're done. And then you can tap on that sail, merge it down, tap on the sails now, and merge that down so your boat is on one layer. And then what we can do is we can tap on it, we can duplicate it, we can grab the bottom one out the two, we can go up to our edit tools again, basic transform, we can flip it horizontal and then continue to rotate it until it's upside down, like so. And then you should be able to just drag it straight down until you get a wicked reflection there of your boat. And you can either make them touch or you can leave a tiny little gap. It's totally up to you, and hit the tick when you're done. Now, of course, you don't want the reflection to be exactly the same. So we're going to tap on it. We're going to bring the opacity down, and you can bring it down to a really low amount. You can pick whatever number you like for your reflection. I think something around about the 40% mark looks pretty good. And if you want to, you can tap on the boat above and tap on it and merge it down. So now it stays with its reflection. So now what you can go ahead and do is you can go to your edit, basic transform if you want. You can move it inwards a tiny bit. You can even scale it up in size a tiny bit as well if you want. It's totally up to you. And then hit the tick when you're done. You've got this awesome little reflection of a boat in the distance. Now before we finish, there's only one more thing to add, and that's a little shadow down here. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to go right to the top of our layers. We've got our frame here. Notice how it nicely sort of frames everything. It keeps all this excess nice and tidy. If you turn it back on, you don't see any of those excess lines. We're not interested in them. So we can create a new layer. We can go ahead and go to our brush. Let's go to fills again. Solid fill. The color again wants to be the one on the very far right of the palette. We can go up to our create options and go to circle. And we're going to drag out a circle. Now, don't worry if you can't see it too well. We're just going to drag out a circle like here and just hit the circle tool when you're done. What we then want to do is go to our create options and go to edit, and we're going to go to basic transform. Now we actually need to change this to distort, and we're going to bring the top node down in the middle, and we're going to flatten this down until we've got a little bit of a disc, and you want that disc to be a little bit smaller than the width of the actual circle, but sit underneath it until it's kind of floating a little bit, so something like that, and then hit the tick when you're done. Then what you can do is you can blur this out. So we can go up to our edit options. If we go to edit, and we go ahead and use this option here of edit and filters, we can then go to structure and blur. And if we tap on that, it will then load in the blur effect, and you can see it starts off at 50%. You can max that out to 100. You can do whatever you fancy. I think something kind of subtle looks pretty good because we are going to lower the opacity down of the shadow a tiny bit. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, in fact, because I'm going to flatten the layer down. So I'm going to go up to, in fact, 80% and hit the tick. I'm going to go back up to edit. I'm going to go to basic transform, but we'll go straight to distort. In fact, we'll jump straight there. We'll flatten that down. I want that really flat disc-like shape to it. A little something like this, and hit the tick when I'm done. I've got this lovely shadow, and what you want to do is you kind of want to blend it out on the edges. So I'm going to grab my eraser, I'm going to tap on the eraser, I'm going to go to the option of sprayers, and I'm going to go to the option of soft airbrush. We're going to set the settings of the brush to these ones here, so the eraser, and we're going to set the size to, we want something a good size, maybe around about sort of 300, that's fine. And all I'm doing is very, very lightly blending out the right side here, because we want the darkest point to be in the middle of the shadow and the ends here to get a little bit more faint, because the sort of closest bit here is the middle, and the edges, they should be a little bit more faded out. So you can spend some time really blending that out. It's kind of optional though. If you can't do it with your equipment, don't stress over it. Something like that. And then the alternative then is to tap on the layer and bring the opacity down just a little bit. So you can bring that down just till you get a nice subtle shadow underneath there. You don't want something too strong. So I'm going to bring mine down to around about the 50% mark. I'm going to tap away. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go full screen with 4. I'm going to pinch with 2 fingers till we go full screen, and we end up with today's finished design. So I hope you enjoyed this really simple design, ideal for beginners, and I hope you had fun if you are a beginner as well. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of today's design, and as always, make sure to drop a like while you're down there, and subscribe, of course, for more Infinite Painter tutorials. Now, if you didn't already know, you can also go ahead and tag me in your finished creations over on Instagram and join my Facebook group. All of it is linked below. But most importantly, you can support the work that I do here on YouTube by becoming a member of the channel. You can support the channel and you get a little loyalty badge beside your name that grows the longer you are a supporter. You also get early access to these tutorials, as well as potentially some members only tutorials to come in the future. So make sure to keep an eye out for all of that. Hit the link in the description down below if you would like to support the channel. And if you like this video here on YouTube, you probably like the ones on the screen now, one of which is the playlist that is designed to be aimed at beginners. So you can check that out using the little cards on screen now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.